All right, guys, today we're going to talk about what is the soul. So, what is the soul? We're going to hit the ground running here. What is the soul? The soul is a triune. But to furthermore understand what the soul is, first we got to look at what we are. So, for that, we go back to the beginning. In the beginning, Yahweh made them male and female. Right? He was talking about the race of man. The race of man came in two models, the male and the female model. It's no different than going to a dealership, and at a dealership they sell you vehicles, but they have trucks and they have cars, right? Two models, two types of vehicles. The male model is the man, and the female model is the womb man, the man with a womb man. But they're both man. That's the race. Now a man is a triune as well. So what is a triune? A triune is something that has three components that make up one thing. So you think about a piece of cloth. A piece of cloth with three types of threads. A blue thread, a yellow thread, and a green thread. All interwoven make up one piece of cloth. That's a triune. So man is a triune of a spirit, a soul, and a body. So you have a body, you are a spirit, and you possess a soul. The soul is the mediator between the body and the spirit. So as a mediator, it's like the bridge. It's in the middle. And we'll talk more in detail about that down the line. Right now, I'm just trying to make the point that man is a triune. And it's made of these three primary components: a body, a soul, and a spirit. A spirit is essentially who you really are, and you are housed in this body, this earth suit. The spirit part is that breath of God that animated the body. It gives you life. The soul is like the software that runs this organic supercomputer that we call the earth suit. So now let's look at more in depth, what is the soul? Well, the soul is a triune as well. And that triune is made of three parts: your mind, your will, and your emotions. That's what your soul is. Your mind, your will, and your emotions. The will is a powerful force. That's why it's called willpower. It's power that you're given. It's legitimate power. I don't know how else to describe that. Like, it's power. You can will things into existence, basically. You've heard that before, because you could literally use it as a power. The power is that you'll decide, you know what, I'm never stopping until I get this done. And you make that decision and you stand on it. The deciding ability is powerful. The fact that we get to choose, right? We can decide to do whatever we want. Do thou wilt, whatever we will. Or we can decide to do the will of our Father. We can also decide to do the will of someone else. The common denominator here is that it's our decision. We decide. You're the one actually with the authority right there. That's what's cool about the will. The emotions, they deal with things that you feel. Feelings. Charged up energy, right? Energy in motion. Charged up energy. Thoughts that have charged up energy. Sensations, feelings. And then the mind component. The mind is something that has two primary parts. the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind deals with surface level stuff, like day-to-day tasks, day-to-day thinking, seeing a billboard, seeing just random things throughout the day, right? Surface level thinking, which is kind of like the realm of the brain, you could say. The subconscious mind is deep level thoughts, things that have been integrated into your being. This is no longer surface level. This is like below the surface. It's your passions, your desires, what you love, what you hate. That comes from your heart. And that is your subconscious mind. Biblically speaking, there's a proverb. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is the man. The heart, the Hebrew translation of the word heart, is actually mind, and in particular subconscious mind, the deep mind within. So that's interesting because you have heart and mind correlated or linked. It's because your heart is a thinking organ. There is gray matter in the heart. That's provable today, but that was already biblically stated thousands of years ago. And you can think with your mind. That is your heart. So what's interesting as well is that your heart, your mind, your subconscious mind can be influenced by your feelings, your emotions. And then that will influence your mind, your heart, which then can influence your will. And then you can decide to do something or not do something based on how you're feeling or based on how you feel about something. You start getting into dangerous territory here, because if someone knows how to download messages into your heart, then they can take control over aspects of your life, if not your whole life. Let's go back to King Solomon here. He tells us, you are whatever is in your heart. You literally are whatever is in your heart. Therefore, whoever controls your heart controls your life. There are people that know this. There's people that study the Kabbalah, that study the Zohar, and they learn about this. And therefore they craft campaigns, marketing campaigns. They craft narratives to get messages downloaded down into your heart. That's their intention. Like, they're literally intending to do that because they understand what I'm speaking to you right now. They get that. They're high level people. It's not just like your common marketing agency. No, we're talking about high level institutions. Why do you think some investors will spend $200 million to make a movie and then another $200 million to advertise it, to market it? Why are they investing $500 million to do this? Because they know the power of the heart, or at least the power of getting a message down into your heart. See, when a message gets down into your heart, it becomes part of your being. And I'm not going to say it's permanent, but it's almost permanent, because it becomes one of your desires. It becomes one of your passions, and it can become a lifelong passion. You can watch a really well-crafted movie and fall in love with one of the characters in that movie because of the way the story's built and how much emotion you begin to carry as you're watching that story unfold. So you get to feel like, oh my God, like what's gonna happen next? And you begin to get on the edge of your seat. And you can actually sometimes feel even your heart pounding because you're so into the story. I mean, they got you hook, line, and sinker. And if they do their job correctly, and they really sell you a story, and they sell you the characters in that story, you can fall in love with that world and those characters. Like, for example, I know people that became fans of Star Wars when they were like 5 years old, and now they're like 55 and they're still fans of Star Wars. So they've been fans for 50 years, 5 decades. So what does that look like? That looks like 5 decades of someone talking about it, mentioning it. When people bring up movies, they inevitably eventually bring up Star Wars. Then they rant about it, and they rant about the lore and about Darth Vader and about the Force and about, you know, like the Jedi and lightsabers and how cool and this or that. And that's word of mouth advertising, right? They're so into it that they'll buy the stickers, they'll buy the shirts, they'll buy the backpacks. Then they'll have kids and they'll introduce Star Wars to their kids, and then they'll buy their kids the toys. And this will go on for years and years and years until they're decades, and then decade after decade. There are high-level people, high-level investors that understand the potential of that completely, in and out, and they're willing to invest $300 million in making a movie, $200 million into a marketing of that movie, because they know that the potential here is that you can have a lifelong fan, customer, in other words. And you think that's just going to be one? No, it's marketed to hundreds of millions of people. So if you have hundreds of millions of fans, like Star Wars does, for example, then you have customers for decades in the hundreds of millions that are buying products for $10, $20, $15, $30. I mean, the profit is in the billions and billions and billions. And it's almost non-renewable. Like, it just keeps going. You just got to continue feeding that fire. You know, every few decades, release another Star Wars something. That's a movie example, right? Now you can use food as an example, right? If you have, like, say, for example, a powerful drug like sugar, you're like, man, I can use this to get people addicted to my product, right? Because I know that sugar is addicting because it tastes so good. I can give it to a 5-year-old. A 5-year-old, imagine you have a daughter and she's never really tasted sugar. Maybe she has protective parents. And then one day she tastes sugar. That becomes an explosive moment in that child's life. Because they're young, their mind is still developing. And something like sugar, like, it's fire. It's like sugar is something that burns. It gives you an immediate rush. You feel that. It's intense. And the taste also is intense. I mean, we're talking about a drug here. And we're drugging children, and it's fine to most people to do that. Because it's become common in the culture. It's been okay. It's been made normal to drug children with sugar. Why? Because most of the parents are also addicted. And, you know, we then pass that addiction down. But high-level owners of some of these big companies, they know that. So they create a marketing campaign to target children. They know that if a child is, like, going down the aisle and there's product recognition, they saw a commercial, they saw something on social media of, like, a bunny rabbit, they're like, let's put this dumbass rabbit on a box, right? Call it cereal, we'll call it Tricks, because we want to have tongue-in-cheek, like, we'll let you know that we're tricking you and we're tricking the parents. And it doesn't even matter if they get a different cereal, Because typically, you have like separate companies, but then there's one big parent company above all those companies that's actually banking in all the profits, right? It's like one umbrella that covers like multiple companies. And they're the ones that are actually making the campaigns to target children, your kids. Why? Because they know that, okay, if a kid has like a virgin tongue, at some point in their life, they're going to taste sugar. And when that moment's happen, it's going to like starburst, and it's going to be an emotional rush. And they're going to feel like they made that decision. They were like, oh, I want that. And they got it. And then they literally were like, that was a great decision. That was a great decision because it tasted incredible. And it made a lasting memory and lasting impression on their soul. Right? They got the emotions, they got the will involved, and the mind is like, you have a fluctuation of all kinds of hormones. And when the mind is developing, the explosiveness of that, the intensity of that, the volume, how high they feel that whole experience gets downloaded into the heart, and then they get hooked, and then they're like, oh, that's my favorite cereal. Then they begin to identify with it, because if they have friends at school or something and they're like, what's your favorite cereal? Then you're like, oh, my favorite cereal is Trix. Then it starts becoming even more so than just the cereal. Now it's your favorite cereal. It's the identity. And before you know it, that's your favorite cereal until you're like 25, 30, years and decades pass. And anytime you feel down or whatever, you go to that cereal, you go to that comfort. There are people that know this. That's why there's a line in the Bible, in the New Testament, where Yeshua, Jesus, was like, hey, don't fear someone that can shoot your face and kill you. Fear someone that can kill you and kill your soul. So then you do a word study about what the soul is, and then you're find out, okay, this is what the soul, your mind, your will, and your emotions. And then you find out that there are people, and that's what he's trying to tell you. He's not just trying to give you some tip and you're like, oh, okay, cool. He's trying to tell you that there are people that look like you and me, that look like your neighbor, that dress casual, but their intention is that they're trying to conquer your soul. There are people that are sitting around round tables and they're shooting the shit with other people, and they're going how do we make the best ad campaign to get messages downloaded in the hearts and minds of people? They're talking about your soul. They might even actually say soul in some of those meetings. And they intend to. And they're putting money behind all kinds of ways that you get to someone's soul. For example, they'll spend money on really good music and really good graphics. Because, if you put a jingle along your message, if it's well done, well crafted, and it's actually catchy, it can bypass a lot of your spiritual walls and just get downloaded into your heart immediately. Because you'll just be singing in it, it'll be in your mind. Literally your mind. Whether it's your conscious or subconscious, those are components of your soul. Your soul is your mind, your will, and your emotions. So if they get it in your mind, whether it's the conscious, their goal is the subconscious, but at least if they get it in the conscious, they already got a foot in the door. And they're thinking about ways to do this because they know that if they get it deeper, if they go and actually get it in your heart, man, that'll become a passion of yours. They literally sit around and talk about this kind of stuff. So what else is the soul? As we were saying earlier, the soul is the mediator. The soul is the mediator between the body and the spirit. All three components have an intelligence. The soul has an intelligence, the body has an intelligence, and the spirit has an intelligence. Your body literally is a living organism. So it has its own desires. It seeks its own pleasures. It has cravings. Your body does. And it'll affect your soul. It'll communicate those desires to your soul. And your soul has the will. So it has to decide, am I going to follow what the body says? Your spirit could be contradicting what the body wants. You could decide one day, I'm going to go on a diet. And I'm not going to eat certain foods. But then you have a long day. Someone pisses you off. So you feel drained. And you don't have that willpower to say no. So your body starts going like, we want pizza. We want pizza because that'll make us feel good. Right? It'll give us that temporary high, that relief. And your spirit is like, no, we said we were going to be on a diet. We were not going to eat these foods. That was the declaration we made. Remember that? So the soul is in the middle going like, what do I decide, right? It's got the will. So it's literally mediating between the body and the mind. And you feel that. You can literally feel like you have two competing things inside your being. One of them telling you to do one thing and another one telling you to do the other thing. And there's someone in the middle like a referee, like trying to like balance both acts and do one or the other. We feel this. And often your body is going against what your spirit wants. Often your body is waging war against the spirit. And the soul is the mediator. It's a form of media. It's a bridge. It's important to watch out what we let in our gates. The soul has inputs, right? You can input information into the soul through your senses. So you have all your senses, but in particular, you have your hearing and you have your eyesight. And that's where you can get like real significant amounts of information, detailed information, downloaded ideas, thoughts, right? Into your conscious mind, into your subconscious mind. And that's why we're advised, hey, guard your gates, guard your heart. Because whatever gets eventually downloaded into your heart will become your passion. It will become desires in your life. So this is worth guarding, and it's really good advice. Therefore, if the war is for your soul, how does one win your soul? Someone has to be able to get messages into your mind, into your conscious, and then into your subconscious mind to eventually take over your soul and start then winning your actions, because then you'll start deciding on a certain path of activities. You'll start deciding to do some things and not do other things, depending on what's in your mind, in your heart. So how does one get a message in there? It's through the media. The media's in the middle, right? There could be some actor in a room with his script that was given probably from the CIA, and they're reading this script and they're putting all their emotion, and they're basically creating this message filled with ideas. It's being recorded through a camera. And how does that message get to you, the viewer? Well, you have to look at the media that is in the middle. So if you go to a movie theater, or you go and turn on YouTube, and there the clip comes up, right? That media, social media, that form of media now becomes the conduit or the bridge in which you now receive that message. The media comes from the word medium. And God considered mediation a dangerous power, and he warned of it Check out Leviticus chapter 20 to 27 or Deuteronomy 18 verse 10. Mediation is a serious thing, and that's why you see governments, when they get taken over, like if there's a military coup, what's the first thing they go after? The airwaves. They're after the media, because that's how they get into the hearts and minds of the people. And if they can start talking directly to the people, you can start taking control of that nation. If you study any of these great military takeovers in the past, that's what they go for first. Once they kind of establish control, they get control of the media. That's like the priority. That's how important that is, and that's how significant it is for influence. The media travels through the airwaves, right? That's what it needs. How does the media work? How does television? How does internet? Right? How does the phone? How does the radio? It's through airwaves, right? Radio waves, TV waves, brain waves. But this is all through the air. Now, who's the ruler of the air? Ephesians 2:14. You were dead in your transgressions, and of the ruler of the kingdom of the air. See, Satan cast out of heaven, he refused to live on earth. He lives in the air. He is the ruler of the kingdom of the air. Because he understood what kind of power is in the use of the airwaves. If he wants to win souls for damnation, for hell, then he's got to have a medium. He's got to have control of a medium. So it's strategic. In warfare, that was a strategic move. I'm gonna camp and I'm gonna make the air my kingdom. We have the wrong idea of Satan. We think that he lives in hell below us or something. No, he's the ruler of the kingdom of the air. The air, whoever controls the air, that's the way into the hearts and minds of men. And if you really do your research, if you really look into the powerful families that dominate telecommunications, right? Telecommunications, the wiring, the actual technologies that are needed to make telecommunications successful, you find the Warrenbergs. I'm not pronouncing that right, but they're this family in Sweden. And they're above Rothschild. And there's other families too. Most people these days talk about Rothschilds like that's the end all be all. That's like middle management. If you think that's like who runs the world, you still got a lot of searching and researching to do, because there's more to it, and there's families past that. And you can immediately find out why they're so influential. Imagine having the first rights on all of telecommunications technologies. Yup, that's these guys. And who do you think these guys serve? The ruler of the kingdom of the air. And again, that's what all of this is for, your soul, right? And your mind is at the center of your soul. Whoever can control your mind can rule your life. As it was stated again, I'll repeat myself in Proverbs. Whatever it is in your heart, that's what you are. Right? As a man thinketh in his heart, so is the man. That's everyone. And people, ancient people know this. People that read the Talmud know this. People that read the Kabbalah know this. And now you know this. And you're equipped, and you should take your medium more serious. Because these guys, They're not putting 250, 300, 400, $500 million into a Netflix series or a Star Wars series. They're not putting that kind of money unless they strategically are trying to make you believe a certain thing in your soul. They want to manipulate your soul in one way or in another way. And they're sophisticated. The sophistication of how they craft the messages, it's beyond what most even truthers understand. I've been lucky enough to have a solid almost 20 years. We're talking about 16 years now of studying film, for real studying film. Some people think watching movies is studying film. That's like you thinking that just because you watch football games, you know how to call plays and you would be a good coach. Like actually a good coach. Like you would be able to coach a college team to a winning record and to the playoffs. That'd be delusional if you think that simply by watching games, you would be a good coach. Half the time you don't know what's happening in there. You don't know what plays are running. You don't know like how they're instructed to move and what to do and how to counter other movements from other offenses. No, you actually have to have in-game experience so that you can test your strategies in football against another head coach who's trying to outmaneuver you. Very similarly in film, like you actually have to have in-game experience making short films, doing video editing, doing and putting to practice where you learn camera techniques, cinematography that involves camera flow, composition, staging, all these tricks of lighting. Every single one of these things has a different aspect of the consciousness it affects. And people in the industry have crafted that to an art and a science. And it takes many years to learn, many years to practice. You have to like put in the work, like animation, flashing lights, different eye coordination movements and silhouette values. Like these things bring about a different state in someone's mind. By learning this stuff, you start to decode it as you're watching high-level Hollywood media propaganda, media messages that are being crafted, and you start to pick up on things that are not that, like, they're very subtle, that you could think like, oh, this is a benevolent movie, this is a good movie, but they're very subtly changing how the culture and the minds of the people watching it. And it's dangerous. It's very dangerous because it can go unseen, completely unnoticed, and you would think, oh, this is just a simple adventure movie and it's PG-13. There's not even that many bad things in here. It's just like, dude, the culture that it's creating and the seeding it's doing into your consciousness, and it's doing it at such a high level. Just like, good grief. So, sometimes it's unbelievable to me, and it's also respectable in a way because you see it craft at that level. You're like, the filmmakers in that are skilled. They're like deeply, profoundly skilled. And that's why you got to take the media you consume more serious, because there's more to it than what you imagine, especially if it comes from the big 5 corporations. If the media you're consuming comes from those guys, oh, there's a reason for it. There's a purpose for it. And they, like I said way earlier, they sit together in conference rooms and boardrooms and they hash out plans and strategies to get messages in your consciousness. And they use all the tools they have available to them to be able to do that as effectively as they can. This is a time to really mind what you watch, to really mind the media you consume. And now you know how the media affects your soul, and how your soul is your subconscious mind and your conscious mind. And it's also your emotions and your will. And this is just 1/3 of a triune that is who you are. You are a soul, right? Sorry. You are a spirit that has a soul that lives in a body. Now, earlier, I alluded to the fact that when something got downloaded, it's not necessarily permanent. It's almost permanent, but not quite. So what can you do if there are things that you have within your soul, within your heart, that you want to change? Because we're asked to change, right? The word repent literally means change your mind. If you do a word study on repent, it means change your mind, change your thinking. So it's talking about your soul. So what do? You use the word of our Father, right? How do you wash something? How do you clean something? You need water. And there's different types of water out there. There's some really interesting water that I'm looking into these days that I'm investigating. But for right now, you have what? You have tap water, you have purified water, you have spring water. But there's another type of water called living water. And that living water comes from the source, comes from our Father. And that water can wash your heart. Now you have to take your time with that. Don't expect to just read like a line of the word, the scripture, and then like, oh, your heart has been cleaned. No, it's very much like dieting. If you gain like 80 pounds in 4 years or 5 years, don't think you're gonna lose 80 pounds in 1 month. No, you're probably gonna have to give yourself a year to lose that 80 pounds minimum. There's extreme cases, but you know what I'm trying to say. So the same is true with the word. You're going to have to, if you're going to really want to change something that's in your heart, something that you feel like, oh man, you're going to have to read the word and use that living water to wash yourself, to wash your heart, to clean it out. But it's going to be a process, and it's going to be a long process depending on what you're dealing with. Might take a couple years, might take a year, might take longer. It depends on how much you read the word. But that is a way that you can take control back of your own soul and literally begin a washing process. And you use the word of our Father. And this has been JC Barba with What is the Soul?